Hello, everybody. It's Ed Rosenberg, and I'm speaking to the one and only, the great Jeff Cohen from Cell Labs. Jeff, how you doing?
Doing great, Ed. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
As always, I love the presentation at the Amazon virtual event. I liked literally almost every presentation, and even the ones from the third-party apps. They were all actionable and meaty and outstanding. So thank you. So, what was your perception from the event?
Overall, like first off, it was great that they allowed some of us to give presentations. They allowed us to create our own topics and our own content. So it was not, it was obviously Amazon vetted, but we were able to develop our own. And I think, when it comes to an event like that, you have to understand that the information that comes from Amazon is scripted, but it gives you a really good understanding of like what's important to Amazon and what message does Amazon want to get out into the marketplace. So, think of it like a political campaign. They have a message they're trying to get across, and it becomes clear when you listen to the presentations because it's like brand registry, brand registry, brand registry. Okay, everything's tied to brand registry. Having a brand is important, right? Data, data, data. Okay, your brand analytic, your analytics across your account health are important. So you can pick up some themes and you can pick up some little tidbits, maybe something that you weren't doing in your business before.
Yeah, everything is private label, brand registry. I mean, that was 95% of the content. So they made a major announcement yesterday about a change or clarification or on buyer seller messaging, and it's going to take into effect November 3rd, election day. I guess that's just a coincidence. And so, what exactly is changing?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit it on the head. There's definitely some changes in the policy, but the policy was more of a clarification. And I think this is, I'm going to applaud Amazon in this situation because this is really the first time Amazon has really taken a step back and heard from us the confusion that we've had. And they did this through communication with companies like ours and others in the space as they've been evolving their buyer seller messaging policy. They've been getting this feedback, and the feedback they've been getting is it's really confusing to know what you can and you cannot do. And so if you look at the policies in the past were very specific to what you could not do. And then we as sellers had to kind of infer what we could do based on, well, if we cannot do this, then that means we can do this. They finally came out in this policy and flat out said, you can send and request a review. And so that's been like for the years we've been running Feedback Genius, that's been a controversy and debate of can I actually ask for reviews? And now the policy clearly states that you can ask for a review. Now that's a position we've had for a long time, but it's now clearly spelled out. And it says in the language, you can ask for a review or seller feedback, but pay attention because they also say you cannot ask for it more than once. Okay. So they don't want you asking for it over and over again. The other thing that I thought was really interesting that they did in this policy was that they made it clear that you can use third-party tools. And so a lot of sellers have run into problems where seller support has said to them, well, you can't do this or you can't do that. And then, as a tool provider, we're sitting here going, wait a minute, we work with Amazon. We're part of the App Store. Our tool's compliant with Amazon. And so Amazon finally came out in this policy and said, you can use third-party applications from the App Store to message your customers. So I think it's really important for us to focus on what Amazon said we can do, and then also pay attention to what they said we can't do. And they definitely added some can't do's into the list, which are mainly around formatting and fonts and emojis and the amount of size of your text and things like that. But most of the stuff that they said that you can't do is all been in the policy for, as long as I can remember.
Was there anything that someone like your company was doing that now you know you cannot do?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the two things that we as a company have to do to remain compliant is that all of our messages need to be sent with an order ID, and all of our messages have to be sent in what they call the buyer's language of choice. So that's on us as a supplier to be able to meet that recommendation, and we've been working with Amazon to meet that. In terms of changes for customers, I think Amazon just got a lot more specific in what you can't do. And so you'll notice that like it used to just say you can't offer an incentive for a review. Now it goes through a whole list of what you can't offer, and they're saying that you can't offer any compensation, gift cards, discounts, refunds, rebates, reimbursements. So Amazon broadened the language in some of those things. The only other thing that I think really kind of potentially impacts sellers when it comes to some of this is Amazon has asked us to remove all opt-out features, and so you as a seller are only able to use the opt-outs that Amazon provides. All in all, that's a better policy because every third-party um, supplier had their own opt-out because Amazon wasn't allowing the opt-out. And so it's better for there to be a universal opt-out anyway. It's just going to make for a better overall experience.
Right. There are two things which I thought was kind of weird. Actually, a few things. First of all, the fact that it wasn't a PDF as opposed to just a link. I guess they could change that, but any idea why they did it that way?
Yeah. So the indication we got from Amazon was that what we saw yesterday, or what we saw on Tuesday, and depending on when you're watching this, was that they're making an announcement that the change is coming. And so the reason you're seeing that as a PDF is because it's not actually a policy change. You're being notified of an upcoming pending policy change. So on November 3rd, the actual policy will go into place. And that's when you'll see it actually change within the guidelines of the policy of Amazon. And so there is a chance that some of these guidelines might change slightly between now and November 3rd. And we'll continue to keep an eye on them and continue to work with Amazon. And if we see them, we'll keep people updated so that they're aware of that. But in all likelihood, a big change won't occur. But the reason you saw this as a PDF is because essentially you got the notice of a change,
Mm-hmm.
and then the official change will come in early November.
Right.
And with that change, just so people know, with that change comes the next round of enforcement. And so that's essentially what Amazon has said, is that you have between now and November 3rd to make your messages compliant with this policy, because when the policy goes into effect, then enforcement of the policy will go into effect as well.
Right. And they also wrote no phone numbers. I couldn't figure out if it meant that the seller can't give a number or you can't ask for a buyer's number. I would think if I'm asking for a buyer's number and they want to give it, that's fine.
Yeah, so I don't know specifically the policy on asking a buyer for his number. I would say in general, if you're asking a buyer for any additional information, you should have a pretty good reason for it. If you need to set up delivery or something like that, there are reasons that you would need to do it, but don't try to skirt around those rules. What Amazon wants to be clear of, and they made this very crystal clear to us, is that people were trying to sneak phone numbers, email addresses, website URLs into the messages that they were sending, either by doing tricky ways of adding the email, or adding the URL as part of their logo, and all of those things. Amazon has come pretty much out in black and white and said those aren't allowed. And I think that's what's interesting about this policy, is that while Amazon did come out and define what you can do, they were a lot more black and white about what you cannot do. And they're trying to kind of remove some of the interpretation. And that was some of the feedback we gave Amazon when they were developing this policy, was that if Amazon doesn't specifically say what you can and cannot do, then everybody in the space starts adding in their own interpretation to a rule or a policy. And I think that hopefully it's a direction Amazon goes down with some other policies, because I think sellers should really feel like, hey, I know what, if I want to message my customers, I know I can use a third-party tool. I know I can ask for a review. I know that, I need to include certain information, and I know what I need to not do to remain compliant. And I think that's a different place than you and I have been in reviewing these Amazon policies over the years.
Yeah, I mean, there was always this ambiguity, and they always stated that if they give exact directions, then bad actors can get around it. But I think they apply that policy, this way of thinking, too broadly. Like in this case, there's no downside in telling me exactly what I can do or what I can't do. And another thing which they mentioned is bad grammar.
Yeah, I mean, you and I always laugh when it comes to bad grammar, because you're not supposed to have bad grammar inside your messages, inside your listings. Um, that's the one that we actually said to them is the hardest to police. If when it says like no more than 2 line breaks between paragraphs, we can write code on our end to help you identify that you've done that, and give you warnings. But bad grammar, I think, listen, it's all about intent. And what Amazon wants is that if Amazon reads a message and the message just doesn't make sense, it's going to reflect poorly on Amazon. It's going to reflect poorly on the experience. If you're a foreigner or you just are not good at English yourself, pay somebody to proofread your emails. And when you're proofing your emails, use the policy as a guideline to check each email and to go down and say, am I aligning my email correctly? Did I not use emojis? Am I speaking in a way that's not persuasive? Am I offering any kind of incentive? And, really look at what you're doing and see if you can figure out, that you're going to be compliant with the policy or not. Because you only get, as you only get one warning, right? If you violate the policy, you get a restriction, a 30-day restriction. And if you violate the policy again, you get a permanent ban. And, you're very limited in what you can do if you get that permanent ban. You can still do request a review and some other types of communication, but you lose your ability to do the proactive and asking your customers for review. And while sellers are saying that it's harder and harder to get reviews, here's a mechanism that Amazon is providing us that we can automate based on our orders. We can provide value to our customers, and we can ask for reviews. And reviews do impact your business. I think we just have to have a reasonable expectation of how many reviews we're going to get based on the number of orders that we have.
Right. Okay. So just one last thing, Jeff. I don't know if you could. Some sellers have asked, and I think I'm going to make some noise about it. Maybe if you think it's appropriate, you can do so also. There's no appeal process for anybody that got blocked and is blocked for life. And I think now that Amazon came out and said and admitted that it was confusing, I would like for Amazon to have some kind of mechanism to sort of allow these sellers one more shot, like after taking a quiz or something, to get their messaging back. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, I didn't bring that up. I didn't bring that up with Amazon while we were discussing any of this. It's an interesting thing to say, can you get another shot? I definitely think that the policy in the past had challenges in the fact that people were the biggest problem I saw is that people were suspended, or they were restricted. I think that's the technical term Amazon uses. People were restricted and they couldn't figure out why.
Right.
And in many cases, Amazon, as you know, with any type of appeal, Amazon says, tell us what you did wrong. They don't tell you what you did wrong. Most of the time that we reviewed those types of situations for our clients, what we found was that they were sending too many messages. They were sending messages to orders too far back, or they were requesting reviews multiple times. So legitimate violations of the terms of service. There were incidences where even, I mean, I consider myself pretty well versed on the policy, and I could stare at somebody's account and not figure out what they were doing wrong. And I do think there needs to be some type of process that if you just don't know what you're doing wrong, that you can say, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Somebody help me.
Right.
And Amazon should be able to point that out. I just don't know if it's practical in the size of the organization that Amazon has. Because if you think about all the layers that Amazon has, you've got people all over the world who are responding to seller support issues, and it may just lend itself to something that's just not possible or practical. Obviously, I believe that people should get a second chance. I don't know if Amazon will do that or not.
Right.
It's always worth asking.
Yeah, I'm going to see if once they come out and say it was confusing, that's sort of there's no reason why someone got confused. Should have got now that they're fixing the issue, and let's begin again.
But I would also venture to say, and I just want to be real with, and I'm always real with you. I've always been real with your audience. Many people who violated the policy knew they were doing it. They knew they were doing it, and I think that the challenge that's come in a lot of organizations. So I worked with an organization that got a lifetime ban, and the problem that they had was that when the message came from Amazon that they had a 30-day ban, it went into like a queue in their system, and it never got up to the right person in their company to deal with it. And so by the time they got the permanent ban, it was too late because they had too many layers in their business. And they knew that what they were doing was wrong, but they were just kind of like, well, if I get in trouble, I'll do something about it. So I think make sure you have a mechanism in place to understand if you're doing something wrong, that it notifies the right person so that you can take action. And if you see it and you get the warning, stop your messages until you truly understand what's happening and why. Don't just let your messages turn back on. And I think that's what a lot of people were doing is that they were waiting the 30 days. They were making what they thought were changes, and it wasn't enough of a change. So, understand that like you had your first strike and you only get 2 strikes, and maybe come back with a strategy that's a lot more conservative. Don't just go, if you can't figure it out, don't just go with the, I'll just stick with what I was doing type of mentality. Now, for our customers, we're always willing to take a look in your account. We're always willing to kind of peek at some of your messages. We are, we try to be very clear with our customers to say, listen, we're not judge and jury for Amazon. So we can review your messages, but we can't give you any kind of guarantee one way or another. It's very easy for our team to identify some of these big problems. And I think it'll be interesting to see how strict Amazon enforces these as they roll it out. And, maybe they'll give us better information when they do enforcement than what they've done in the past.
Yeah, because they're doing that for suspensions. It's night and day. So hopefully it is too. All right, Jeff, as always, it's a pleasure, and I truly appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. Appreciate it. Everybody, let me know if you have any questions. Happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you so much. Be well. Bye.